For joining today's presentation from Real Story Group. I am Scott Dill on the business development team here with RSG, and as always we have our founder and CEO Tony Byrne on the line with us as well. We're running through a couple of technical difficulties with Tony's presentation, but we'll get him back up and running here in a moment and kick things off with some slides to accompany us having our conversation today. Going to be a 30-minute session, so we plan to move through this at a pretty quick pace. And what we're going to talk about today is some career advice for MarTech leaders. We've been in this space for the last 24 years and have come across folks from a lot of different industries. So I'm going to share some of those words of wisdom today as we walk through today's session. We will have time at the end for questions, so if you do have any questions or anecdotes you'd like to share, or maybe some of your own advice to give, you can do so in the GoToWebinar control panel. And then for everyone who's on the line with us today, you will also get a copy of these slides. So thank you for taking some time to join us for today's session. As I said, we've got Tony here, got things worked out with his GoToWebinar, so we're excited to get things started today. For those that are new to Real Story Group, just wanted to give you a little bit of background. And we're really a little bit different when we look at analyst firms. We won't fall into the sort of traditional analyst firm, so to speak, right? So one of the key things about us is that where sometimes these different aspects of MarTech or different practices at some of these larger firms, we put all the pieces together when it comes to the MarTech stack. And Tony will walk through our coverage areas here in a little bit. But the other thing I want to mention too, that's so important to us, is the fact that we always sit on the buyer side of the table. We never work for analysts, for vendors in any way, shape, or form. We don't speak at their conferences or write white papers for them. We exist to help you make the right technology choices, regardless of what the vendors happen to be saying in their marketing propaganda, so to speak. So I'm going to turn things over to Tony, and I'll pop back on at the end for questions and next steps. So Tony, take it away.
Thanks, Scott. Super excited about this topic. It's really kind of new for us here at Real Story Group, and I'll explain a little bit about why that is. I think I'll talk a little bit about our own career path for those of us who are analysts at Real Story Group, and use that as a little bit of an example. So I started the company originally as sort of a researcher. We were using research from, I was working at a systems integration firm. We were using research from Gartner and Forrester and others, and we thought that the research was really bad, that it was too fawning of the vendors, didn't tell us the real story of our experience as an implementer. So I decided to become an analyst myself, built a team, started doing our own vendor evaluations, which is still a very important part of what we do here at Real Story Group, building out what we call real quadrants that are customized for our members. Then we started advising some of our members on the right way to select technology, ended up writing a book that encapsulated kind of an agile methodology for that. Then we became an advisor to stack leaders who asked us questions, not necessarily about the individual pieces in the stack, although those are important, but how does the whole stack fit together? And so we developed reference models and have been advising large enterprises. Then we discovered we couldn't answer all the questions, so we put together a peer council. We call the Stack Leadership Council of MarTech leaders like you, who get together privately, in person and online, to share experiences and learn lessons together. And it's really, in that last sort of phase, we've been doing that for 6 years now, that we've kind of at Real Story Group become sort of like mentors for some MarTech leaders. I've really gotten to know a number of you, have in some cases followed you from company to company on your own career journey. And prior to this, I was always very careful. The whole company is always very careful about not giving advice about things we don't really know about, right? And so when people ask me about career advice, I usually go, wait, it's not up our alley. Ask us about, everything that's wrong with Drupal or whatever. And really in the last 6 years, we've been providing a lot more sort of mentorship and career advice to MarTech leaders. And I think we've drawn, being analysts, we've drawn some lessons about if you're an ambitious MarTech leader and you're really concerned about your career, where do you want to go? There's some lessons, and I think there's 5 key lessons in particular that we're going to tease out today. So here's the agenda. We'll go through them one at a time. We're going to start with don't align with a single vendor. I would say don't align with a vendor, period. So this is a screenshot from LinkedIn, and you see all these people as Salesforce platform owners, and that's a legit title and a legit career move if you're in IT. But if you're in MarTech, you don't want to have a vendor name next to your title. Now, for sure, the vendors will want you to really get familiar with, really get involved with their particular offerings. This can definitely amp up your internal profile. So I'm not saying don't, become conversant, but actually becoming a platform owner is more of an IT career path, and it's a legitimate path, right? So I'm not being critical of these people. I am being critical of the fact that there is such a thing as a Salesforce platform, because that's a bullshit term that Salesforce says. There actually is no Salesforce platform. But leaving that aside, being a platform owner is a legitimate IT path. It's not really the right path for a MarTech leader. So, and the reason for this is that vendors are very good at this. They're very good at cultivating you, and they're going to start asking you some things that, again, are seem kind of like sugar at first, but then kind of turn out to be kind of saccharine a little bit later. So they're going to ask you to speak at their events. Fine. They're going to ask you to become their in-house mouthpiece. They're going to ask you to push their roadmap. They're going to encourage you to get cozy with their leadership, which isn't necessarily the worst thing. Then they'll suggest that you send up a vendor center of excellence in your firm. And then at that point, you start becoming more of a platform owner rather than a product manager, and you're subtly kind of putting the future of your career in their hands rather than yours. I mean, just ask anybody who was had SharePoint in their title 10 years ago. Hopefully they've all moved on to something else, but you get the idea. The thing you need to remember, and this is particularly true of MarTech vendors, is that these relationships often become very one-sided, and they can also become very transactional, where their approach is going to be, well, what have you done for me lately? And you have to remember who's the customer here. You're actually paying them for a service. And so you need to keep that always in mind in the relationship. Yes, it can be a kind of a partnership, but at the end of the day, you should be a customer of theirs. You should be treated as a customer. Also remember that any vendor, their roadmaps are going to wander. I mean, Microsoft is a great story around that. And we know with MarTech vendors, particularly big MarTech vendors, they'll bully you, they'll go above your head, they will go to your boss's boss when they want something. Again, it's more of a transactional relationship. The other thing is that vendors come and go, and you may need to leave them. And the good news is, you have many choices. And to that extent, the last and maybe the most important point here is that composable stacks have won, right? So the future of most MarTech stacks, particularly for larger enterprises, it's going to be composable. You're going to deal, the smart MarTech leader learns how to deal in a multi-vendor environment. So this is just our famous subway map. You can download this at the URL you see at the bottom. The different technologies are different streams. The different technology streams that you see here are marketplaces are represented by different lines in the subway map, and of course they intersect here and there. And the larger point to this map is that these are highly fragmented marketplaces. The good news for you as a MarTech leader is you have almost an embarrassment of technology choices, and most of you have taken advantage of those choices, and that's why we went out and surveyed the 30 firms that have been members of our council over the last 6 years. And here's all the different tools that they use. I mean, I know of only one large vendor, one large company that's gone with kind of a single vendor sort of approach. And even then they have to bring in other vendors for the gap. So the composability model at a stack level at least has kind of won out. So you don't want to necessarily align yourself with a single logo here when you're going to have to be dealing with a lot of these logos. So what should you do instead? And what this brings us to kind of lesson number 2, which is do pursue domain expertise. So we're kind of differentiating here domain expertise from platform expertise. So platform expertise, let's say, becoming, Marketo could be a really important part if you're a B2B firm, of your marketing stack. Marketo is a marketing automation platform for outbound marketing in a B2B context, sold by Adobe. So yeah, you kind of want to know Marketo at a strategic level. What is it good at? What is it not good at? Where are you going to have to backfill? What's the different cost structures involved? So, you do need to have some platform and definitely vendor expertise. But the technical expertise in terms of using Marketo, that can be found. It can be built internally in months and quarters. And if you're building tactical expertise, again, it kind of binds your career to the vendor. So as a strategic leader, what you really want to do is build domain expertise. In other words, the capacity to build effective outbound marketing programs and systems. This takes years of experience and expertise to build, but that's what differentiates you as a leader. Now, when you have this domain expertise, it also allows you to switch horses internally. So you go with a different solution than Marketo, which we've definitely seen people do. Or if you switch positions in the market, in other words, you get a new employer, you may not end up with Marketo, right? And you don't want to limit yourself just to firms that use Marketo. Now, you also want to follow the same rubric as a MarTech leader for the teams that you bring in, the teams that you recruit. And you'll be under a lot of pressure to say, oh, bring in a Marketo person. Someone who, quote, on the bottom, I can build programs on Marketo. What you really want on your team is an outbound marketer who can design modern, effective campaigns with testing and analysis. The Marketo part, you can backfill. Now it brings us to our third area of career advice. This is around data, we call this. And, this might seem a little bit like an overstatement because people make all these wild statements about data. Data is the new oil and all that. But the fact is that it's almost impossible to underplay how important data and data facility, at least at a strategic level, is going to be so important for your career. I even came up with this term a while back called MarDatech instead of MarTech. My colleagues quite sensibly told me to drop that term. It doesn't really quite roll off the tongue, but you can see here now we are in kind of a 3-node world here, and we have marketing and technology, which is spawned MarTech, which is great, and a lot of you have had to learn a lot of expertise to be able to cross those two circles. But now data is a first-class actor in this drama, and in many cases, the data team, particularly in the larger enterprises, has split from the IT team for good reasons. They intersect at data ops and data eng for sure. But if your notion of marketing and data is just sort of activation and insight, so that's important, but you also need to really understand sort of what's going on at an enterprise level with respect to data, and to even potentially bring some data ops teams. So really to be thinking about this as not just MarTech, but I won't say the word MarDatech anymore, but I think you get the idea here. So don't treat data as a black box. We see MarTech leaders do that, and it makes me cringe. And don't treat the data team like the help, that they're just there to deliver you some reports and stay out of your way. And for that matter, don't treat report outputs as gospel, because you really need to understand, what meat was going into that sausage to really understand, what's coming out the other side. So you'd also definitely want to build out data capacity within your MarTech team. Certainly the marketing analytics team, but also, a marketing orchestration team. And don't ignore marketing data ops, because you're going to probably need some data ops talent close nearby. And you definitely don't want to delegate the data strategy. You want to own the data strategy. So on the do side, understand all key MarTech trends rely on data, whether we like it or not. Personalization, decisioning, omni-channel, effective AI, all really hinges on effective data. You can leverage your MarTech alignment skills with now sort of MarData alignment. And definitely make friends with the enterprise data team, get to know their world. They have very unique set of strategies and constraints. They have their own tools. And then you want to build up your own marketing data team as a complement, including new roles. Now, what's interesting about this is we have actually seen cases where this was a path to the CMO seat. There have been large enterprises who wanted a CMO above all who was really data savvy, including one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world. We're seeing this now in other sectors as well, where the CMO can really talk data. And if that's the direction you want to go, then you need to as well. All right, so this is a little bit of a take on to infinity and beyond. to multi-channel and omni-channel and beyond. So we throw those terms around a lot, multi-channel and omni-channel. They're super important to understand and also tease out with respect to your career. And it's interesting that this topic doesn't come up a lot, but in conversation, but it's really huge. And it gets a little bit to some organizational issues that if you can overcome them, it can be a real career boost to you. So let's just talk first about multi-channel alignment. So many of you have seen these sorts of stack diagrams that we've done. We have the engagement channels at the top, interaction delivery environments, and then there's that middle section there, the colored boxes that are engagement services. So these are things that are actually touching customers and prospects. And unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is really siloed within an organization, that for paid media versus loyalty versus social media versus outbound marketing versus inbound engagement, which some people call digital, right, to differentiate digital. And then MarTech is just kind of like outbound marketing and campaigns. That's deeply unfortunate. We think that MarTech is really about all of these engagement services. And so one career path for you definitely is to be able to take the lead, not necessarily take control, but take the lead as being the person who's going to thread all of this stuff together and lead you all in the same direction for multi-channel alignment, right? And there's a lot of companies who think they're doing that, but they're actually not. And if yours is one of them, this is definitely an opportunity for you. And again, your experience kind of being able to weave, to work with tech and to do MarTech really helps you here. So we would define, I would say part of your career path is to redefine MarTech as all of this stuff. Yes, this is hard. You could tell me chapter and verse about how hard this is in your own enterprise, and I would believe you and definitely sympathize with your situation. But we also know that customers expect this, and this is a story you can tell the C-suite, which is, look, let's look at this from the customer on the other side of the glass and what they're trying to do with us. And it's one of these things where if you don't take the lead on this, no one else will. Your digital team's not going to do this. Your paid media team's not going to do this. Your social media team's not going to do this. Your loyalty team's not going to do this. It really has to be you who takes the lead on piecing these all together and really having a multi-channel customer experience framework and alignment. Ultimately, this is going to lead you to the next kind of growth area, which we're going to make a distinction here with respect to omni-channel alignment. So omni-channel alignment is where you're able to deliver the right content, the right data, and the right decision logic into any channel, including channels that haven't even come up yet or are just emerging, like agents, right? Customer agents and business agents as your customers. And the way to do this, if you've seen our reference models, is to create a three-tiered stack where you're really focusing on these enterprise foundation services that are decoupled from your engagement services, right? So you can apply them anywhere in your stack. So you've got content and information along with generative AI over on the left, on the bottom, and then in the middle, of course, data services with Insights AI, and then decisioning with Decisioning AI. And this is really where the action is going to be in the future, and to be able to make this happen and align across this stuff is going to be super important. There's another subtle shift here in the engagement services that I want to point out, is that I've introduced customer care, CRM and Salesforce, so the sales stack, and e-commerce here. So these are a much broader set of customer touch points, but they are customer touch points. So this is an incredible area of potentially of growth for you. So the career case is definitely investing in these foundational services will make your operation more future-proof, both with respect to omnichannel coherence, but also we'll talk in a minute about with respect to AI as well. And effective AI, we're learning, is really dependent on these foundational services. If you can marshal the resources on behalf of the customer and the enterprise across all your silos, this puts you in a more visible and I would argue more effective leadership role. Because the customer, remember, they want Netflix, right? They want to be able to have a Netflix experience with you, which means, kind of beyond channel, right? They want the same experience regardless of whatever channel they're interacting. And the enterprise wants stickiness, right? They want the customer to stick around and to be happy and to be engaged, maybe even to be overjoyed, regardless of how and where they're interacting with you. So this is going to be hard. There's no question this is going to be hard. But if it's not you, then who's going to do this, right? Who's going to really put together the omni-channel stack and the omni-channel customer experience. You will need a lot of help. You won't necessarily be running all those different channels, but you can provide the leadership to make this happen. And I think actually, as a MarTech leader, you're kind of uniquely positioned to do this. So that's what I'm getting into on the right, is that you, hopefully by now, you know what customer data is that you can leverage. You have excellent UX resources at hand. You understand the concept of journeys. You can navigate privacy essentials, which are really important across all of those channels. You know how to work with IT and data, critical. You've acquired collaboration and leadership skills, and your customers will love it. Your enterprise wins and you grow in your career. So this is really kind of thinking beyond MarTech to the omni-channel, or what we sometimes call the post-channel stack. So I've hardly mentioned AI at all, and some of you are probably saying, what about AI? What about AI? Why didn't you lead with AI? What about frickin' AI? So we've thought about and worked with a number of our members and done some consulting with some large enterprises, including, I think, with people on this call around AI. You may have seen our reference model around AI, and we put this into action for a number of you to sort of accelerate your efforts. So yeah, that's great. You know, we're excited about AI. We're excited on your behalf about AI. We also know that there's a lot of hype and BS around AI. And so what does this mean as far as your career? Well, I don't think AI, including agentic AI, don't think it's going to be a game changer, a career game changer for an experienced MarTech leader. Right? You have seen this before. You have been through hype cycles. AI is obviously really important with definitely some groundbreaking capabilities that it can add to your team and your stack. There's going to be new roles. But we tend to think of AI as more disruptive than transformational. At the end of the day, there's still going to be MarTech. You're still going to need to be able to communicate with humans and communicate effectively with human customers across the stack, and for at least the next 10 years. And so the fundamentals of MarTech are not going to change. The good news is some of the advice that we're giving you here is going to make you more effective at AI. In other words, thinking about omni-channel, building up your foundations, becoming really data conversant. All these are going to make you more effective at AI. But you don't need to go out and become, like a genius query prompter, right? Other people can do that for you. You need to keep focusing on the essentials of MarTech and how AI can, under some circumstances, as it matures, can improve your capabilities across a number of these different colored boxes. Okay, the fifth one is around connections. So this one again is, make connections is kind of a universal human story. And I think in the digital age, we've got a lot of people telling us that we should be making more connections. I mean, starting at the upper left, your career coach is probably telling you to connect more. Your therapist down here is probably telling you to connect more. Your spouse or romantic partner might be telling you to connect more. Your spiritual advisor is probably telling you to connect more. So we're not alone in recommending this to you. And clearly from a human standpoint, more connection is a great thing. But I want to talk a little bit about a particular type of connection, which is peer connection. So we've been hosting this Stack Leadership Council for 6 years now. And it's confidential. They're candid conversations, very revealing, no vendors ever. And we've really you have sort of told us what some of the value that those of you who have participated in this have gotten out of this, which is, peer learning, a lot of new ideas, new framing of old ideas, which in some cases is even more powerful because a lot of us have some of the same ideas, but framing it so it's successful and really bringing it to fruition is always an interesting challenge. And it's been fascinating watching people share that. A lot of formal and informal benchmarking, which by the way, very often leads to validation. And it's so interesting because everybody thinks they're behind on AI. I mean, everybody thinks they're behind. And the reality is like almost nobody is behind. And so you get this kind of validation with talking with your peers. Okay, this is what's real. This is what's not real. And then of course, career possibilities that you always get through peer connections. So that's one of the ways that Real Story Group can help you. Our model is for We do consulting for enterprises, and then we also offer what we call corporate memberships. These are like retainer arrangements where we're your team's advocate and an independent resource for any questions that you have that come up or any strategies you're trying to develop. We're a sounding board, we're a source of expertise. We help you convert what you're trying to do into industry standard terminology. So in terms of the features, what you get as a corporate member is access to all of RSG research and decision tools, unlimited email inquiry, up to 3 custom research projects of your choice. So we've been asked to do a lot of custom research projects recently around any number of different things, influencers, AdTech, MarTech integration, a lot of really fascinating topics. Monthly check-ins or day-long workshops at your office, certainly participation in our exclusive Stack Leadership Council, private webinars for your teams, and definitely mentorship for you. Part of this is we want to see you become successful in your career. So Scott can kind of fill you in on details about how to stay in touch. We've gotten a couple questions come in, and if you have any others, feel free to just post in the GoToWebinar questions tab, and we'll have a few moments to go at those. But Scott, you want to talk about staying in touch and next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tony. Great presentation today. And, as Tony mentioned, we'd be happy to walk you through a little bit more of that corporate membership and how that would align with you. Happy to schedule 30 minutes with Tony or one of our other principal analysts to learn more about your specific situation and whether this membership is something that would be a fit for you. So if that's something you'd like to learn more about, feel free to reach out to us at explore@realstorygroup.com, and we'll get that scheduled here in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, I did want to mention that we have another webinar scheduled for October 30th. Speaking of AI, we're going to talk about how to turn AI pilots into MarTech reality. So same time, same channel, October 30th. So it'll be great to see several of you join us for that one as well. I do see a couple of questions have come in. So Tony, I'll let you respond to John and Amy.
So first we had a question, was it from Amy that came in, and I don't see it anymore. Scott, do you?
Yeah, I do actually.
You want to just read it out? Yeah.
Yeah, so Amy is currently a technology product manager with over 15 years of experience in MarTech. She's wondering if you have any recommendations on how to transition from a technology leader to a marketing leader.
Yeah, well, MarTech is obviously a great way to do that. I think we could say a lot of different things. I think a lot of it, honestly, you probably have all the experience that you need to become more of a leader. I think potentially you may need to just get some certifications or other things on the marketing side in terms of marketing strategy and that sort of thing. I think the big way that you really prove yourself on the business side is to be able to adopt the vernacular. So in terms of thinking about process, you want to be able to talk in terms of outcomes, to really lead with the customer or the prospect and their experience, and to be able to figure out, you've already been able to communicate with probably very effectively with your marketing peers, to really watch how they communicate with each other. And not everything is about language and fitting in, but I think when you look at the concepts that they're working towards, that really helps you understand how it is that they think. But I think it's a very exciting transition you're looking to make, Amy, and look forward to hearing more about it. John has a funny story here. I came up with a similar clunky idea to combine MarTech and AI. It was MarTech or MarTech. And John says he got laughed at. Okay, so we both got laughed at. I think MarTech is the term that's here to stay, but certainly data is the third leg of that stool now. So anyway, always great to spend time with you. If there's a way that we can make you more effective as a MarTech leader within your team and across your career, feel free to engage with us, and always happy to start with just a chat. All right, so for Scott and the rest of the Real Story group, this is Tony Byrne signing off for now. See you next time.